What's going on, y'all? Rooster McNuggets. So when I was a little kid, right? I didn't know any better. And I was just wondering, like, when I grew up, like, how things would be. Well, now I'm grown and, well, I can see things. And definitely certain things have changed. I mean, when I was young, I remember asking, like, what's this money thing? And nobody could explain it to me. Um, I mean, they would give it their best shot, but it just didn't make any sense. And even when I got older, um, I studied it for a long time, and I still had a real hard grasp understanding money. And the reason that is because it's simple in its concept, but they've made it complicated so that they can confuse people and they can keep you in the dark. But when we really think about it, we shouldn't be so stupid. I mean, really. Like, this dollars are not worth anything. They're not tied to anything. And yet we spend our whole lives chasing it. We spend our whole days chasing it. We build all our activities around it. We build everything that we think about doing around it. It becomes the central of everything. And it's valueless, essentially. I mean, I guess you could say that the paper, you could burn it and it may give you some heat for a little while, but nobody would want to burn that shit like that. Anyways, I would like to burn it actually. you know, um, and we should let it burn. You know, if we were to burn it, then maybe we would get our power back. You know, I say maybe because, well, there's all kinds of dumbass shit that people can fall for if they're not willing to stand up for common sense. When we were little kids, we wanted a world full of peace. We wanted to see something better. And most of us as kids thought about how we could do that, and thought about, and I maybe I was gullible, and thought, well, when we get older, it'll be different. It'll be different, because well, all you motherfuckers will die. But if they keep in training and ingraining us to do the same things that they did, and by the times we get older, we forget about what was really important because they've brainwashed us. And that's what everybody else is doing. I mean, you got to listen to the lame ass excuses that we tell ourselves in order to do this. I mean, you probably turned this off by now because you said something to yourself like, well, I can't do shit about it anyways. Or that's what everybody does. Or it's not valueless. And you've tricked yourself into thinking there's some kind of value behind that garbage. Um, Whatever it is that we've told ourselves, we're just cowards. We're just being cowardly, you know, because, well, we don't know how to walk away. We're scared, you know, we're scared. It's like, well, how would I provide for myself? What am I gonna do? Grow food in my backyard? Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's one thing we could do, but I mean, we don't want to change. We don't want to give up the lifestyle. We don't want to give up everything that we've invested into. And that's why it keeps going on, y'all. You know, um, the scripture says to exit Babylon, to leave, to make an exodus, because we're not going to reform it. You're not going to tear it down. You can't go to war with these assholes, not like that, because, well, they're waiting. They're waiting for a reason, you know? And that's why a lot of people have given up, is because they're like, well, you can tell, just look at the system. I mean, everybody's just waiting for a reason, and everybody just thinks for themselves. Well, if they're looking for a reason to take you out, and you're not willing to stand up for what you believe in, then what is that? That's a coward. You know, why are we so cowardly? Well, because we're scared of death. And we're really scared of death in this day and age because we think we're our body. We think that we understand the material universe. We don't understand shit. And that's what's so sad about it, is that we live in like the greatest era that I've heard of in some hundreds of years, where information is literally at your fingertips. I mean, we could figure this stuff out if we want to, and we choose not to. That's ignorance. We just ignore. You know how sad that is? That most of the world just ignores shit because they'd rather watch Seinfeld or whatever the fuck. I don't know. It just doesn't seem like we've really thought about our impact on the world. And when we do, we want to blame it on other people and try to tell them what to do when we can't even straighten out our own selves. We don't even know what our own self is. We don't know, what our culture is. um, we're all basically in this culture like satanic worshipers because we worship ourselves. I mean, and I'm guilty of this too. It's something that I've had to work very hard at to even recognize. You know, and well, that's because that's the culture that we're in. They literally have been using black magic, dark magic on us to make us want to be ignorant, to make us. They're using our instincts against us. And we know this, and every time we've turned around and tried to make a stand, it just doesn't turn out well, and not for the so at first. So we crumble, where is the alternative? I mean, there's no alternative system, right? That's why we have to exit Babylon. It's not like we're going to exit to something else. I mean, we are going to exit to something else, but we first have to just exit. If there's nothing else there, then you just start to exit anyways. That's what people are like. Well, where are we going to go to? Well, you just follow your heart. Like, you don't have to do this stuff. Um, it's sad that we don't think about these things anymore. I drive around, and these people in these companies are still making other people wear masks, and they don't even work. The CDC has said so itself, and yet they say they follow the CDC. But all they're doing is just making people just follow orders. Don't think. Because if you were to think, then you might come to some conclusion. So instead of thinking, just force what we told you on everybody else, so you don't have to think. This is what it's come to. They've gotten people so lazy that they're going to continually let you be lazy, but the cost is that you've got to tell everybody else to do the same thing. Now they're forcing everybody, and you'll do it because you'd rather tell somebody else what to do than actually do the work. Even though you're out of job and you hate your fucking job, you'd rather do that than actually work at getting building some kind of life for yourself, some kind of career, some kind of network with people that feel the same way. Well, golly, like, what if I leave, and how am I going to eat? How am I going to? And these were all things that were prophesied, like, and we don't see the problem now. But if we don't take stands now, if we don't start making these steps, it's not going to get easier. Lao Tzu says, every time you procrastinate, you put off war, it's to your enemy's advantage. And best believe that we're at war. Truth is always at war with the perceptions of people, because what we perceive is not truth. We reality, truth in itself, does never changes. It never, no matter where you're at or when you're at, it is what it is. And we'd have no understanding as to what those principles, um, what that axiomatic fundamental understanding is, and how that is actually something we can build from, something that we can start to use logic. You can start to think for yourself, and really, before you can even start to think for yourself, though, at this point, you just have to stop, unprogram yourself from all the bullshit that you've accepted, that you don't even know you've accepted. Like, anytime you feel funky and you feel assaulted, um, just question that. Like, where is that coming from? You know, I mean, I know it's difficult for us to think in those terms. Like, well, then I'm just going to question everything. Well, okay, maybe start off with like the bigger things that stand out, you know, and ask yourself what made you why you made what made you upset, okay, or what made you uncomfortable, and look at that. Don't just oh dismiss it, and then say why. Why? Ask those leading questions to find out who you are. You know, we get scared of these things because I don't know, I guess we want to hold on to our our laziness, you know, but that's ignorance. That's when we ignore truth. You know, it's it's not acceptable. It's just not. Like, at this age, we should be acting a little much better than we are, for real. Like, I'm not talking about like me being 40 or 44 or whatever the fuck. I'm saying, like, just as far as what we're talking about being a civilization, but we're not nowhere near civilized, you know. And I don't know, y'all. I'm just making this video because I can't stand it anymore. Like, we gotta start talking about these things. Like, I can't just zone out. I don't know. I see people, like, I've been reading a lot, and I've been working on my music and like building this organization and working with people that work with me. But like, people are still just zombied the fuck out. It's like, it's crazy to me, like why we would choose to be so, I don't know. I'm just thinking we can exercise a bit more balance, y'all. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not trying to say that I got it all figured out, but we all gotta admit it's fucked up out there. Like, this shit's just gotten way out of hand. And it's like, and I guess why I say why it fucks with me is because, like, when I was out there and running, like, I didn't give a fuck, right? But like, what I'm saying is, people ain't even running no more. Like, they're like, they're saying that they turned around, but they're not really doing the work. They're not really looking at their shadow. They're not really, you know, they're not really getting real with themselves. And they'll talk about their followers of certain deities, but then they don't. You can tell they're not followers. They're followers of Satan, which is just the worship of the little horn. It's just the little self, the micro you. That's who you think you see me as on this body. So that's just my thumbnail, though, y'all. You don't even understand. Dig it. This is just my avatar, homeboy. You know, timeless, timeless. It's beautiful. When we get to access potential, when we do these things, true potential. Think about where potential comes from. Do you really understand these things? If it's linear, like you think, in time, then where does potential come from? Where's free will at in all that? You know? Are you just going to just glaze over all of that and just be like, well, I got my fucking, I don't know, my Starbucks and my fucking my 5 cars and my 3 fucking houses, and like, are you happy yet? No, you got to go to Hawaii and Alaska, and that's where you'll find happiness. Yeah, there's nowhere to go, y'all. Every time we think that we're going somewhere, we're always here. You never get there. Ever notice that? Do you think that's just coinky dink? I mean, it's just now. There is no past. There is no future. That's all in your head. Or you wrote it down, so it must exist, or you worked it out, right? It's recorded, so there it is, saved for posterity. Well, then you living in your reflection. And when we look through these carnal eyes, that's what we're seeing is history. We're looking backwards because you can't understand what we're seeing until we close our eyes. Because it's not until we close our eyes that we begin to think about our fundamental experience, and not even think about it. And well, that's where we start. But and you can't use words for this because words also express past. They express time. And so they cannot grasp what is consistent, that transcends that dimension. And so we have to start asking ourselves fundamental things. We think we know all there is to know. We're so smart. But we don't even know what numbers are or what words are. What is a word? What is a letter? What is a sound? Because it is vibration that gives rise to all of this. It's motion, right? Energy. And we know that we only perceive a small portion of that. And then it's ran through our interpretation. So whatever you're experiencing right now is solely your own psyche. Unless you can move past that. But if you don't understand those fundamentals, then how can you begin to work with them? And these things don't happen overnight. There's an order. And we have to let go of the bullshit before we can start to apprehend the real. And really, that's the process. A lot of people are going after and trying to chase after these things, just like money. But in truth, it's a matter of letting go of what isn't, what is false. And in so doing, then you're closer to the real. Because if you try to grasp the real with what you have or what I have that's faulty, then all I'm doing is putting my impression upon that. But if I let go of my impression, I get glimpses, hints at certain things, directions, it's over that way. In the sense of Well, when you start to wrestle with these words, they're concepts. And so these concepts grow together with false concepts. And this is what the parable of the tare was. And um, one of Jesus' servants comes back, or I shouldn't say servant. Anyways, one of his friends, colleagues, whatever, comes back and he says, "Hey, there's weeds in the corn, and so you must have got bad seed." And he said, "Somebody sown bad seed in there is what happened." And he says, "Well, I'll go out there, tear it up, you know." And he says, "No, no, no, don't tear them out because you might tear out the good stuff, right?" He said, "But let them grow together, and then in the day of the harvest, we'll pull it all out, and then we'll throw the bullshit into the fire, and you know, have a good feast." And that is how concepts work when you're beginning these things and start to pull on the threads of what interests you, and and as you pull on those things, then they develop into newer questions, and they get you start to fill out these concepts, and then you'll see another concept that is contrary. And so um, what is good and bad is not not to be discerned in all of that. It's just a process that we're wrestling with to see what's what. And and then ultimately those concepts, well, that's it's always moving and developing more, but then you get to a place where words fail because the nature of what words are and what thoughts are. And so what we're doing is relaxing into the stillness, because that's where raw energy is at. So by letting go of what is not, we come into what is. And that is when we start to realize that all that what we have told ourselves is thought. Because it all came through our interpretation. And in that, we are not born. We were never born. We have told ourselves the story that we were born because we have something to work out. And that's the cycle we're on. And the cycle is so seen in life and in the spaces between. Because nothing is wasted. And when the notion of time is dropped, which is a something we've created. I mean, it's a notion, it's a concept. Um, when it's dropped, I forgot where I was going with that. When the notion of time is dropped, then well, the cycle it ceases. You're here, and so there's this newness that's always present, and that's eternal. And in the potential of it all, the full potential of it all, the powers that be have manifested themselves in a way that they can reflect upon eternity. And that's what we're experiencing. Now, that's a lot to take in, and I don't expect anybody to just take my word for it. Um, but if you look within, I'm not, and walk this path for yourself, you can experience it. You don't have to take my word for it, And I didn't know that was the case myself until I found the path. And I'll tell you, the path is that you realize um, that you are the student, and then you a teacher. The teacher will appear, and whether you're by yourself or surrounded, or find an actual teacher, or surrounded by people and circumstances, all of that will become your master, and you will have to learn how to serve it properly. And in so doing, all these things are unlocked if we are sincere in that pursuit. If we try to fool ourselves, if we're not sincere, then we're just fooling ourselves. And we should acknowledge that. We should acknowledge that and not beat ourselves up when we're not feeling like we're saintly, but um, there should always we should count the cost of the path that we're on, because it's deadly serious. This is reality. This is the ultimate. This is what is. This is the ultimate question. This is the ultimate. This is where you either are born again, or you're not. And as far as I can understand it, there's no escaping from this. So at some point you'll come around, but well, we could go through all kinds of realms of hell that are unnecessary. If Well, maybe they're necessary for a time for us to see why we have fallen in the first place. But as soon as we recognize what the hell is going on, that should be enough. And um, just because we know that we are facing hell doesn't mean that we shouldn't. You know, that's the coward. That's what. That's why people are chasing this fake ass paper, um, and claiming to follow um, certain principles and deities, and not honoring them. That's why. Um, and so, well, I'm guilty too. So I'm not trying to condemn anybody at all. But let's be honest about this. We're condemning ourselves if we don't take some accountability. All right, y'all. Love it. Love y'all.